Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today I am here in Studio One, the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society, once again. But our guest is several hundred miles away in Joliet, Illinois. And I have the real pleasure and honor to be able to talk with a man who is one of the best harmonica players in the world, best harmonica technicians in the world, knows the history, great singer, player, performer, composer, and one of my all-time heroes and great teacher, Joe Filisko. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm delighted to be taking part of this with you.
Well, I remember pretty distinctly. I think it was 1998. I had gotten the harmonica bug, and some friends told me to go to Blues Week at Davis and Elkins College in Elkins, West Virginia, and I went up there and went to harmonica class, and there was this guy, Joe Filisko, talking about train songs on the harmonica, and I was kind of befuddled. But I think it was about by the next day, I just thought, wow. And I sat in there. I think I even sat in your intermediate or advanced class, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, but it was just fascinating. And since then, I've been to many of your classes. You've done house concerts here. Just really so very appreciative and to be able to know you and, have been friends the last few years. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me also.
So I think we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but when did you start off with harmonica or guitar? Was it pretty early? Did your parents play music in the house? Did you have a lot of music in the house? What was your kind of trajectory of music in your life?
I don't believe that I'm one of the folks that did have that much music in the house. My father played a teeny weeny bit of the keyboard, but it's just the music culture was not really part of my growing up, part of my existence. We didn't get together and sing songs, and I did some music stuff when I was in grammar school and junior high. We had probably a music class that met once a week, and we would sing. And I remember that as being fun, but I wouldn't say that I had any particular passion about it. My real introduction to music came when I was in high school, and a friend of mine started taking guitar lessons, and he was basically showing me some of the stuff, some of the lessons and things that he was doing. And that really raised my eyebrows and got me really, really curious. And I think it was a pretty short time later that I borrowed a guitar and was really kind of replicating some of the guitar lessons that he was taking. And I would say that I had quite a passion for it. It was one of those things that made time simultaneously stand dead still and fly ahead rapidly. I would get a guitar in my hands, and the act of putting my fingers on the strings and strumming and picking notes brought me immense satisfaction. And I think that was really important for me at that time, because there was a lot of tension in the home. It was that time period that my parents divorced. And basically, I think my attitude was that I'm happy to check out of this game and go into my own little dream world, pretend world of making music. So that's really where I first remember developing like a hot passion for music. Or I, I'll be fair and say, I don't know that the passion was as hot for music at that point as the passion was for holding the guitar and playing it, and just the sort of the fixation of watching my fingers dance and move across the strings was highly stimulating for me at that point in time.
Wow, cool. So you really didn't, you started fairly late in a sense, not as late as me, but in high school, and guitar was your first instrument. And then did you just hack around with it? Did you get lessons, and did you play pretty seriously on guitar for a while, then join bands and that sort of thing?
Well, I would say that, like most things in my life, I'm pretty serious about everything that I do.
Well, that's
uh,
I could vouch for that. So, yeah.
but I didn't, I was learning songs. I was uh, trying to figure out pieces of music that intrigued me. And it was really predominantly the pop rock tunes of the day that featured the guitar. So American roots music hadn't quite come into the picture yet.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I went to college, I was studying to get an associate degree in machine tool metalworking. And I realized that not only was there a small music department at the school, but that I could actually take guitar lessons, which somehow never really occurred to me. I guess I sort of had in my mind imagined that I was a lower class of person that was not capable of affording guitar instruction at the time. So I got to know the guitar teacher, and he said, "Yeah, you just should sign up, you know, for the classes." And the passion that I was telling you that I had went from being red hot to white hot. I was beside myself in how cool this was, that here I am with who I thought was the coolest guy in the whole wide world, giving me instruction and direction on how to be a better be a better musician. I was really, he was having me study music theory, which I was grasping, but I have to honestly say, barely grasping.
I hear you on that.
It's my opinion of myself that I am gifted in terms of being an artisan, in terms of having tremendous hand-eye coordination, but I do not believe that I was one of these people to possess musical gifts at a young age. And that is why I described the act of holding the guitar and letting my fingers dance across the strings as probably what was the most stimulating for me about playing the guitar. And the music was something that grew naturally, but it wasn't something that was there. I don't think initially. I've been accused from time to time of being a extraordinarily good teacher, and I would say that if that's the case, part of the reason is that I have a very vivid recollection of what it was like to be musically inept and not understand musical things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. Did you play sort of play with bands when you were playing the guitar? Play with groups or coffee
Well,
houses or anything?
well, good question. Um, I was I was studying music theory. I had not participated in any kind of public performance of any kind with the guitar. although my good friends knew that I could play with a fair degree of skill. And the music teacher, the guitar teacher at the school, by the name of Jeff Jaskowiak, who is to this day one of my closest friends, said, we should put together a guitar ensemble. Let's put together a guitar ensemble and see what we can do with it. And I was very much a disciple of his, and I thought, well, that would be great. We can make arrangements for a wide variety of songs and things that we want to do, a wide range of material. And this is a very interesting chapter because it got me understanding, reading more music, transcribing more music, writing guitar parts out for various different people. And we put together, I'm saying we because I feel like I did so much work in this thing. It was clearly his project. But after doing it for a few years, we actually had a 1 full page write-up in Guitar Player magazine.
Wow.
For some of the local performances and things that we were doing with this predominantly an electric guitar ensemble. And
you were playing rock? You were playing rock music?
Well, we were doing everything. And this is part of my exposure to what real heavy, rootsy blues music was. We were doing some rock and pop tunes, but we had a lot of classical arrangements. We had some Vivaldi stuff that we were playing. We did a Paganini violin caprice as an arrangement.
Wow.
We did a Henry Mancini song, and we had the instructor Jeff had actually written a blues tune that we performed in the group. We did a bunch of his original material, and it was kind of getting exposed to a broader variety of American roots, folk, blues music that eventually was what sent me down the trail of pursuing the harmonica. That was essentially how that all came about.
Was it listening to some blues song or Big Walter Horton or something, and you just thought, wow, that harmonica is pretty cool, maybe I should get one? Or
more or less, yeah. There was actually a gentleman who came and sat in with the group, and he played harmonica in the blues song. He blew a solo, and I was very intrigued by that. And I can't say that was what sold me on it, but I do remember vividly the first time I watched the movie Crossroads, and I heard the harmonica in the opening sequence of the movie while the credits were rolling. And that lonesome, mournful harmonica sound was the harmonica of the one, the only Sonny Terry. And so I basically went to the local record store, and I came home with 2 LPs. One was The Best of Little Walter, and the other one was The Soul of Blues Harmonica by Big Walter Shaky Horton. And so those were 2 of my first blues harmonica records. And it was an intriguing thing. The more that I listened and got into it and did some investigating, the more I realized that this was not only deeply fascinating to me, but I came to the conclusion that there was a tremendous void in knowledge and instructional material on how to play the thing.
Right.
I mean, I had instruction books, and I'd only been playing for a year or 2, and I had instruction books that I could already tell were incorrect in what they were teaching people, what they were saying. And So it really, I was burning more white hot, Jeff.
And so then you started listening. You're 22 or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I'm in my early 20s. Yes.
And you
Yeah.
started getting into harmonica, so you had to go out and buy some and
Yes.
start learning. And was any? I suppose you might have read a little bit about tongue blocking and some of the techniques, but did you? I mean, you just started figuring it out, I guess, right?
Well, here's a couple things. A couple things that were very influential were that in the beginning of 1990, I had heard about a harmonica club that met in the Chicagoland area, and they went by the name of the Windy City Harmonica Club. And as soon as I found out about where and when they met, I started attending. And it was through that club, which was predominantly made up of people my grandfather's age.
Right.
As a matter of fact, Al Fiore, who was the chord player, the harmonica chord player in the group, the Harmonicats, was an active member of the club.
Ooh.
At that time. He was very much treated as, quite the musical icon by folks. And it was through the Windy City Harmonica Club that I heard about this yearly harmonica convention that was known as the SPAH event, SPAH, which stands for the Society for the Preservation and Advancement of the Harmonica. So it's not a health club or anything. That's what the SPA meaning is as it pertains to harmonica. And later that year in 1990, I attended the first SPA Harmonica Festival, and I just ran into so many players that were tremendous, that were really absolutely tremendous players. And this is what I needed. I needed to have exposure to people that were really accomplished, that I felt like could give me vision on what I needed to do. It showed me options. It showed me different things that could be done with the harmonica. And so all kinds of doors started rapidly opening for me. I got exposure to new music, to different music, different ways the harmonica could be used in different genres of music. It is really where I first seen somebody disassemble a harmonica and do basic tuning or maintenance to it. That was really the beginning, or I should say, propelled me into a higher stratosphere of doing harmonica work, harmonica technician type work. And it was a few years after that I walked into the doors of the Old Town School of Folk Music and very ambitiously said, please hire me. I want to do this.
Cool.
In retrospect, I hope it didn't come across as being arrogant. I hope that it only was perceived as being sort of enthusiastic in a way that couldn't be contained. I needed to be involved. I needed to be, working. I needed to be challenged, and I needed to show people what it was that I was doing, even at that point in time.
But it was you were not out performing quite so much as learning, and then you got into with your machine work skills, if that's the right word to use, you were able to say, oh, look at this harmonica. Well, I can make this better. I can do this better. I mean, how did that happen? Because when I came into this in about 1998, and maybe I people people, it's Richard, and we're using the Filisko method. Richard Slay using the Filisko method. So you're still a young guy, and you'd really been out there kind of improving harmonicas, making harmonicas. How did that all go?
Well, at that point in time, I was working part-time at a trophy shop, and they had equipment to basically engrave brass, and I had access to thin brass, of which I thought it would be an interesting novelty to fold up my own harmonica cover plates and engrave them. And I had access to metalworking equipment, so I was machining my own brass harmonica combs, and it was in the attempt of finding someone that could photograph some of these things that the local newspaper got tipped off that this young guy was making his own harmonicas and it might make a cool story. So they sent somebody down, they interviewed me and took pictures, and honestly, within a few weeks, not only was I in the local Will County, Joliet area paper, but I was also in the Chicago paper, and the Associated Press came, interviewed me, took photographs, and then suddenly I had a presence internationally in American English newspapers. You know, there were literally people from all over the world that read about these brass harmonicas that I was making. So I will tell you, I'll be blunt. Whoop did he do? Because it was mostly decorative. It really didn't have that much to do with actually taking a harmonica and making it play better. I had not quite gained that knowledge and experience. But here's the interesting part of the story. This really happened extensively in 1992. And then 2 years later, for some completely unrelated reason, the Hohner Harmonica Company went ahead and decided to do things differently on their manufacturing line, on how they were assembling harmonicas. And the end result was the new harmonicas that were being sold were terrible. They were probably the worst playing harmonicas that the company has ever released, ever put out. And that really was what created the opportunity for me to, let's say, get under the hood and roll my sleeves up and start messing around with the mechanics of the harmonica and really understanding how to make a harmonica that doesn't play well actually play pretty decent. And I had already made lots of connections the few years before through the attention that I had gotten through the press with the brass harmonicas. And so I'd already gotten to know a lot of professional players that were intrigued by that. And now they were really approaching me saying, is there anything that you have? Is there anything that you can do to make these marine band harmonicas playable? And so that was really where I sort of made a decision that, I'm gonna pursue this seriously and see if I can figure stuff out. That's when my relationship with Richard Slay became very tight, and it became professional. And he was
Jimmy Gordon was the other one.
Yes,
I bought a lot of those.
Correct, Richard and Jimmy, and we sort of, I guess you could think of it as a guild. We sort of worked together and shared ideas with the with the main idea that what we were going to do was try to create more opportunity for ourselves and hopefully be able to see if it's possible to put the job title of harmonica technician on the map, somebody that actually works on harmonicas and can make a full-time living from it. So there was this like frenzy of things happening, whereas I was working at the Old Town School, trying to develop a curriculum for how to play traditional harmonica styles. Mm-hmm. And I was meeting lots of people through the harmonica technician work that I was doing. I mean, I was in the most hot boiling part of the kettle while all this was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you really made a difference. And then I want to get back to some other questions, but I mean, at this point, I think the owner harmonicas and others have gotten better. Is that from what they were? And you probably, played a role in that. You helped advise them and such things. But nowadays, is there the same kind of harmonica technician need for harmonica technicians? Are still out there, or people buying them basically in the stores?
Well, sort of. Here's the irony. You can get a really fantastic playing feelings in tune harmonica, especially from one of the Hohner affiliated harmonica customizers. There are two of them in the United States, one of them being Richard Slay, the other one being Joe Spires. Mm-hmm. And they do absolutely fantastic, top-notch harmonica work. The irony from my perspective is the players that I admire the most and have really put the most energy into studying, trying to imitate, emulate, would be like Sonny Terry, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter, Big Walter, D. Ford Bailey. And the irony is that none of these players were players that ever used high performance custom harmonicas. Uh-huh. So you are correct also in stating that the harmonicas that Hohner is selling and making these days, for the most part, are as good as they have ever been. They are a really fantastically high standard. It really makes me happy that I can tell people, yes, you don't need a fancy harmonica. You can get a Marine Band harmonica or a Hohner crossover or Special 20 harmonica, and you can do all the stuff that you hear me doing on record. All that is available. So that's very comforting, because that really was not the case there until they figured things out. I think by the time they came out with the Marine Band crossover, that was a really good turning point for the company in taking the Marine Band harmonica seriously, in treating it more like a real instrument than they ever have.
Cool. So when I met you, I don't remember that you were playing with a group or a duo or trio or whatever, but it wasn't long thereafter, I guess early 2000s maybe, when you met Eric Noden, and now you've been playing with Eric for a long time. And I was so happy when you all kind of got together and started putting records together, because as a young, naive, well, I wasn't that young, but as a beginner kind of harmonica player, I loved the country blues. And there was Phil Wiggins and Sonny Terry and and the harmonica players, the giants that you mentioned, but there wasn't for me a lot of guidance or models for how you play along with some of that music. But you and Eric have really taken on the kind of the roots music. That's what you do, rootsduo.com, and have really, I don't know, made a genre, but you've you've really taken that a lot of places. You're writing your own music now. I mean, how is that? I mean, I think that sort of just fed another part of your soul, getting involved with Eric and playing now for all these years.
Yes, I would definitely agree with you, Jeff. Being a performer was never initially something that was part of my goal. I would say to you that probably my main goal has been to understand, explain, and teach the role of the diatonic harmonica in American roots music. That would specifically be what the goal has been. But to there comes a point where you just have to take what you're doing in front of people. I guess I was enjoying playing on my own terms at home, but I really felt like now, in order for me to continue to grow as a musician, I needed to take it in front of people. I had a duo playing folk music that went for a number of years in the 1990s. And I also played for a number of years as harmonica in a traditional, mostly traditional electric blues quartet. But when I met Eric, we just had chemistry. We really had chemistry in terms of how we communicate, what our goals are. I would say that me trying to understand the role of the harmonica in American folk roots and blues music is more or less what Eric's goal is, to understand the goal of the guitar in American blues, folk, and roots music. And the idea of, I'd say, trying to recreate certain sounds that came from certain styles of American roots blues music or certain players. Eric and I, we just are really into that. We're really trying to make people recognize how rich the tradition of American roots music is. The best stuff is not necessarily in any way available now. The best stuff may have been happening years ago. So we're looking and studying the music, trying to mine those little gems and bring them back to life through our own contemporary songwriting. I think it's pretty clear to anyone that has listened to any of the records that we put out that we want it to sound like an unreleased recording that Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee may have written, for example. So all those players in that genre, especially that played as part of a duo, we're trying to keep them alive to the best of our ability.
Well, you're doing a great job. I love so much of your music. I think I have all the CDs. I've got the newest one, Destination Unknown. Got that. You guys do a great job, and I follow you, and I know you do your annual swing over to Europe and Germany and play there, and also down under to Australia. So now the question. I mean, you've talked about the power of music in your own life. I mean, it burned red hot, white hot, blue hot. It was burning, and it has, not just changed your life, it sort of formed your life or created your life or whatever you might say.
Yes.
But you play in front of a lot of audiences, and you've taught innumerable students and all. I mean, how do you describe what is going on with music, and when somebody gets up and starts playing a guitar and harmonica, and I mean, what's going on? What attracts people to that? What is that about?
Man, I don't know that. I don't know, Jeff. It's a magical thing. There are many people that want to participate in music. I know that sometimes, music can be used to promote the dark side, but I seldom see that sort of thing. People seem to very consistently and largely find a sense of being, a sense of purpose, a sense of peace, a sense of relaxation when they're either preoccupied and consumed with their own personal music or participating, creating music as part of a group. I don't know why it works, but by golly, I certainly have experienced it working countless times, a year.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. It's pretty fabulous. I mean, also when you are out there playing and uh, doing what you've been doing, does there seem to be sort of I guess there's almost a need that people have to participate in that. Certainly a desire, just something that grabs you all the time.
I've seen this happen. A performer can do a dirty trick on the audience and get them clapping along or get them singing along, and that always raises the energy level in any situation. I it it's just people love to participate. The magic thing about the harmonica and what I've really enjoyed is that it's not a great financial investment, and it's so small and portable that if you don't sing, then the harmonica may be the magic musical fix that you need. I think everybody should play the harmonica. There's no reason why everyone can't own and play simple songs on the harmonica.
Wow, well, that's a good suggestion right there. I mean, I think the world would be a better place if everybody played the harmonica.
If you can breathe, you can play the harmonica.
If you can breathe, you can play the harmonica. Those are wise words, and it certainly gave me and still gives me. I've been working on the guitar pretty much now, but it's harmonica was the first thing that grabbed me, and it just feels so good to play along with some blues tunes or something like that. Do you have other thoughts? I mean, you've been teaching, you've been making harmonicas, you've been playing, writing music. Just sort of other thoughts that you might want to leave folks with about music in your life, other perspectives that you have. I know you're going to run off to a gig tonight, I think. It's kind of all consuming. It just seems so wonderful to me, and it certainly is powerful. I mean, I kind of believe that we're just made out of music. We're conscious vibrations in a sense. And any other thoughts you might have?
I can say that if somehow I were to be put in charge, I would make it a definite, absolute requirement that all public schools would make singing and teaching people how to clap their hands in rhythm were an essential part. Harmonica is a small financial investment, but everyone has a voice. I think everyone should be singing. If I was put in charge, I promise you, I would push that very, very, very aggressively. I wish people were getting together and making more music in that sort of context or any sort of context.
Well, given that, I wish that you were in charge, Joe Filisko. We'd have a better world. Everybody'd be having music in their pocket and singing. So I really appreciate your taking the time to talk about all these things. I really value, what you've brought to me, what you brought to a lot of people. I value the friendship, and I should mention that, I still you're my ear cuff inspiration. When I be working in a law firm, and I didn't feel comfortable getting an ear pierced, and you had this ear cuff you always wore, and I thought, well, there's something that I could do. I was always a little self-conscious when I saw you that you'd think I was trying to be a Joe Filisko wannabe. But that one that you had for so many years, you told me melted down and hammered out from a silver dime, I think, right?
It was a silver dime, yes.
Yeah. So I've got a few now. I wear them, and I think of you all the time when I do. So thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you very soon, and just all the best.
Hey, it was an immense pleasure for me to spend this time with you, and I'm going to be checking out your podcasts regularly, Jeff. I think that you do a fantastic job with them, a really fantastic job.
Well, thank you. And the thing is that I've just been so privileged to have conversations with so many people, and pretty deep, profound conversations, and just trying to do the best we can here to make the world a little better place. So just keep on doing it. Amen.
Amen, brother.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
All right.
it. Joe Filisko, everybody. You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.